Being and we're live. So this is sort of like the part 2 of the Scratch series of Agile retrospective podcasts for Agile Ventures, and we are just doing it in the Hangout today, having had mixed experience with Zencaster last week. So we'll see if this turns into a nice audio-only track. We have set up this morning, based on feedback from last week, a document that lists struggles, successes, and suggestions for the week. We've got myself, Nick, Matt, and Michael all here, and we'll have some room for like open discussion. But we'll maybe start with working through the struggles that we had this week, or just sort of looking at them and having a bit of discussion about them, and then we'll go on to the successes and then the suggestions, and potentially create action items for things that we might do next week. So the struggles, we've got 2 items that got a couple of votes, one of which is struggling with Microsoft and Bitnami tech support, and the other one is on onboarding people with varying degrees of experience. I'll mention the other ones. We've got managing ports for Apache on Linux. We've got spending a good chunk of time on decision making. We've got little overlapping time, and someone else saying not saying they don't have enough time to go through the blogs. And we've also sort of said to ourselves, we're not going to throw things open to the floor. Maybe we'll start with Matt. Is there a particular struggle that you'd like to choose? Maybe we'll restrict people to like, let's focus on, each person can choose one struggle thing that we're going to focus on, or bring up a new one. Matt, is there one of these struggles or a new one that you would like to focus on having a little chat about now?
Yeah, I guess like maybe a little overlapping time is not as clear as it could be. I guess I was talking about like the difference in the time zones and having that time to work together. But I tried to add like mine in with a struggle and then a success about that struggle, and like a suggestion of how to improve it. So, but yeah, like, so I did note that one of that I still like, even though we had less time than I thought we were going to have, like on a day of sprinting together, it was still like the most I've ever paired with you. So that was really good.
Oh, that's great. Yes, and context there for those new listeners is this week we've been sprinting on the NHS HOP DevOps hackathon thing. And yes, so myself and Matt have been doing that quite intensely this week. So Matt, is that, well, you can sort of link it into the success. Do you want to expand on the little overlapping time, why that was a struggle and how it became a success, or did you like, maybe you just want to expand on that? Was there a different struggle that you wanted to now highlight, having made clear what the little overlapping time meant?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what it restricted the time a little bit is that we kind of came up with a plan of what we're planning, that we were planning on doing, and of course that changed because of that first struggle with the Microsoft Bitnami tech support. So I realized that you do have to change gears on decision, like what to do potentially on the day or every day, but it would be nice if there's a way that we could try to make some decisions like before we actually, if we do have a limited time, or knowing that we do have a limited time, if we could actually make some decisions beforehand, I think that would help. But I don't know, I mean, there are some people who prefer to have that on the day right before they get into the coding, but it seemed like not every day, but some days, like the first part of the sprint was just kind of trying to figure out what we were going to do, and then that restricts the amount of time we have to actually code. But
that makes a lot of sense, and so that seems to lead straight into a suggestion. I don't know if we have it already. I mean, maybe I will just put it even into an action item there, which would be more upfront planning for sprints.
Yeah.
So that seems like an excellent suggestion. Shall I go on to Michael and Nick have not been so involved this week. I know they're both interested to sort of hear about like what was the result of the sprint. Michael, did you have a struggle this week that you'd like to highlight?
Not really. I mean, I just with the AV dashboard, I guess, getting the database up and running. But I think that's mostly that I just didn't have the time for it at the moment. But I did, in the last hour or so, end up getting some migrations in place on my local computer to replicate some of the necessary database structure for the dashboard, which is going to basically mirror, at first at least, the structure of the website one database in parts.
That sounds like there's a success there. Great.
And I also have kind of these models set up that are like kind of like Rails models, but they're in SQL Alchemy. So I think that will let me potentially, they're not actually Rails models, but they're in SQL Alchemy. Potentially it will let me see the database for tests and potentially development mode, so that we can actually have some data in there for tests.
Great.
So that it'll run and get something. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I've added that as a success. Great stuff. So maybe we'll move on to Nick. Did you have a struggle this week that you wanted to share, or feel free to talk about any of the existing struggles that's been mentioned and add your voice to them?
Well, Sam, yeah, this week I had not had time to do anything for Agile Ventures as my time's been taken up doing other stuff. So specifically for Agile Ventures, I have no struggles, so I don't have any success stories to share. Yeah.
No problem.
I did briefly.
That's nothing to be ashamed of or worried about. It's perfectly normal. Many people, that's where it is. Yeah, go on.
I mean, I could talk about. I mean, I did briefly look into fixing a PR. I think I sent you a comment. You saw my comment on that. So I mean, I could briefly talk about that, or we can move on to other pressing stuff.
Do you feel inspired to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, so in the test output of website 1, it mentions that the Faraday gem, the fixed num, is deprecated. And so we need to update our Faraday gem. But there are lots of different gems that use the Faraday gem. So right now what's holding us back from updating that gem is the Twitter gem. And the Twitter gem hasn't been updated in a while because it's locked down to one specific version in the gem file. And interestingly enough, Stripe hasn't been updated in a while because it needs an updated Faraday gem in order to update, and the thing that's holding that back is getting the Twitter gem updated. So I deleted the so for the Twitter gem, I just said, okay, let's update it to the greatest and latest version. And so it updated the Stripes gem to the latest and greatest, and the Faraday gem, and go and run the tests, and none of the tests would run, and everything just failed. Failure. So I'm thinking we might have to take this in baby steps. Get the Twitter gem maybe to not the latest and greatest version, and so forth. Just get it to the next step up, and then see how that affects everything, and then fix whatever's wrong with that, and proceed in baby steps, getting everything upgraded. Have you had any experiences working with that kind of stuff?
I certainly have. It's one of those things that kind of comes around, and I think your suggested solution, which is doing the incremental updates, is definitely a way to go. So, yeah,
It seems like kind of a pain to do because as you're doing it, you're not really. It might seem like you're not getting anything done, but it's something that needs to get done, right? Especially for the striped gem, since that handles all our credit processing. If I'm correct, it would probably be worth it to have an updated gem. Does that for security reasons, or?
It certainly makes sense as something to get done. It's then a question of prioritizing that against other things.
Right.
We did have this week, Sage identified a bug with the way that GitHub README files are pulled in from projects and so on. That's kind of like a current. It's sort of like a little minor fire for like project manager. When a project manager flags something as an issue for us, that's we need the project managers to feel that Agile Ventures is supporting them. So
okay.
I see that as sort of like a high priority. That doesn't mean that this couldn't also be worked on in parallel, but I'm aware of that. We also had website one. We had one premium member being unable to update their credit card, which is something that had worked very recently for a different member, and I don't know why it failed. And yeah, I mean, it might be that ultimately updating these things and the Stripe gem and so on will actually fix that thing.
Right.
A lot of.
Can we just take the Twitter gem out because haven't we had it turned off, that functionality, for over a year or a year?
I think you're right, Michael.
I think the whole Twitter subsystem has been turned off.
Yeah, it's not. Unlike local support, where we're about to, maybe in the sprint in 2 weeks, actually turn it on, Agile Ventures has not been or doing automated tweeting for quite a long time.
So we felt like the quality of those tweets was very low anyway.
We did, yes.
Okay. Another thing I had in mind, instead of going through and incrementally upgrading it, is just remove the lock on it and then have Dependabot try to update it for us. But that might, I don't know. What would you, I mean, I don't know. What would be your suggestion? Spend time on trying to get it updated, or do it gradually with Dependabot?
I think the Dependabot is quite a good idea, because that sort of allows us to sort of not have we can wait for Dependabot to do an increment. Although I'm not sure if Dependabot will try it gradually or do it in a big thing. I think Michael's suggestion there about removing the Twitter gem sounds excellent to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like that.
I like that too, but it still might not fix all the failures that we're seeing. Is what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah,
it might, or might not. I can definitely remove that, and then either have Dependabot update it gradually, or I could try to upgrade it gradually.
Yeah, we need to in general. We need to have a look at the gem file in website one, because I think that's not the only gem that we're not actually using. But maybe if in a sprint in the future we can do that.
Sure, that's a great suggestion.
And I think that Dependabot doesn't do it gradually, if I'm not mistaken, because they do make some pretty big jumps. I just worked through where it was failing when it was added to local support, and it was jumping from Capybara 2.18 to 3.3 or something like this. So that is incremental.
That's good to know, Matt. Nick, what I would say there is, if you can remove the Twitter gem and the bits of code that need it, and put in a pull request that does that, and all the tests pass, let's just get that in there.
Sounds good.
That sounds like and then whether we manually do it or Dependabot does it, but the key thing would be getting green without the Twitter gem in there, I think.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just remove the Twitter gem and just some service stuff too that can probably be removed. But
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And probably tests and stuff associated with that.
I'm glad, Nick, that you felt inspired to talk about the issue, because I think we've had a fantastic suggestion from Michael there that really may be a great way forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. Oh, go
Sam,
on.
just about I think you already know this, but just about that small fire you were talking about, I did put in a work in progress PR that I think fixes the issue, although it definitely does need refactoring, and I need to fix the tests that are expecting one thing and now we're changing it to a different thing. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to have a look, and don't be too brutal, because I know it needs to be refactored, but I think the functionality works as far as I can tell.
Wonderful. Yeah, fantastic. Great progress there, Matt. So, well, I think that's been a very useful review of some of the struggles. Let's perhaps move on to the successes. And so I'll just read out what we've got on the successes, which include creating new VMs from backup in Azure. We've got a lot of that, so the results of the NHS Wiki sprint in here. Matt set up with permissions to access Azure. Feeling included in the decision making. Most time spent pairing with Sam ever. Getting Faith set up with SSH and getting some experience with SSHing into a remote server. I've got a +1 on that. I was so touched, as usual, by the incredible warmth of your reception to the team. That's lovely to hear. Getting a retrospective on paper that people can add to, and AV dashboard with Michael's getting some migrations running, and the pseudo Rails model set up in SQL Alchemy. Shall we start? Let's go over to Matt. Are there any items in the successes that you would like to highlight for us, or perhaps a new one's occurred to you since some of these were written down?
Yeah, actually, we a couple other things that I got set up with Doku as well, which is good, and also we've got the Docker file, the official Docker, MediaWiki Docker, working in the sense that it's serving over the port, and we can take a step forward in configuring it. So that's huge. And also we've gotten confirm edit updated to the latest on production, and it doesn't seem to be breaking anything.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And then the other ones I put up there, yeah, like I guess, like I said, I was talking about them, and I feel like one thing that hopefully there'll be some space, like maybe a meeting before the sprints, to be able to make some decisions about like some of the higher level stuff, so that we have more time for coding. But it's nice to actually have some say in the decision making as well, which is good.
So I was slightly confused there, Matt. You were sort of mentioning partially a suggestion, and was that then you were highlighting the feeling including in the decision making as being kind of a key success, of successes this week for you.
Yeah, I think like it's something that I put, like I said, I put my own struggles, successes, and suggestions together, and so I think one of the struggles was that spending time of the limited time, and the way I see it, of that we had together and in like the high level stuff. But I think it's a success, the fact that that we had that time to be able to make decisions together, and that in the future it would be nice to be able to do that before, but as much as possible, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So, and I guess I'm reading that as a kind of, the cup half full or half empty. The cup could be fuller, but it was, there was something in it. So,
exactly.
Great. And I think everybody should feel free to elaborate on each other's struggles or successes or what have you. But I think it's wonderful that you felt included in the decision making, and I hope we can continue with that. On that note, Michael, I guess we highlighted your success. Are there any of the other successes that you would like to know more about? Anything you'd like to add that you'd like to highlight that sound particularly good to you from this list?
Not really. No. No.
Fair enough. Nick.
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, and feel free to use this as an opportunity to ask for more details about what we're describing as the sprint successes, if they weren't clear from the description already.
They are pretty clear. Some of the terminology I'm not that familiar with. Like, I know Doku. I think I know what that is. Some sort of serving website, or what is it?
It's like Heroku, but
Right.
it's sort of an open source. It's open source version of Heroku that has only a command line interface.
Okay.
So we're using it to save a lot of money in various projects. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's in the context of the NHS wiki that's not hosted on Heroku, it's hosted on Azure. Doku won't save us lots of money, but it has the potential to streamline the process with which we push out new updates to the NHS wiki stuff.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I really like Faith's statement there, that she's so touched by the incredible warmth of the reception to the team. You know, in Agile Ventures, I've been participating for almost a year now, and yeah, I mean, everyone's just so welcoming, and it's a really great community to be a part of.
I agree.
It's wonderful to hear, and I might use that as a springboard just to link into that. We had that item in the struggles that did have the +1, which is like onboarding people with varying degrees of experience. And I think maybe speaking for you as well, Matt, I think we both felt kind of, is it chagrined is the right word, that we couldn't involve Faith more. We got her involved in some places. I think, similarly for, I think had we been doing things differently and in different orders, there might have been opportunity to get Michael more involved. The way the sprint went is, although we've got to some successes at the end, it kind of meandered around, and particularly as a DevOps sprint, it was not necessarily very well set up to allow people to get into it and on board into it and so on. So it's great to hear that even despite those troubles, that Faith felt positive about the experience of being involved.
Yeah, I think that it's not a matter of we couldn't. I think it's just like there's various things that worked against us, as it were, to that actually being more of a success. One of those things being that we didn't know for sure when and if people were going to be joining us, so it's a little bit more difficult to plan for things for people to be able to do if we don't know if they're going to be there or not, sometimes it's difficult to be able to identify different tasks that different people can do at the same time, which I put, I think, into some stuff, and that we'll get to in the suggestions, that it would, that would be really cool if we can get to the place where that is a reality, where we can have different groups of people pairing on different tasks that are related but are not the exact same thing, so that we can maximize how much we actually get done. And but also what? I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No worries. I was just going to add your great suggestion there to the list of suggestions. I guess like multiple pairing mobbing parties. Go on.
I think I put that on that. Well, I put most of them as questions because I don't, can we get to a place where we have various parts of work related? Yeah.
Oh, then you've got it covered. Absolutely. Did your train of thought get back on the rails?
No, I did. I guess one of the struggles we didn't, sorry, not to jump back to struggles, but I guess if we look back at since we're doing a retrospective, like the idea was that the first day we were just going to upgrade MediaWiki, and we didn't actually get MediaWiki upgraded. So that's, I think, I don't know if that's a struggle, a failure, or it's just the reality. I mean, and we didn't get as much time on the Docker stuff as we wanted, even though we did start making some real progress today, I feel like. So that's still, I guess, an action item for the future, is to try to get those two things done.
I will add those. Yes. Yeah, very important points. So I think that brings us to the from the successes. We could go back and kind of touch on other points, but I guess if we can get to the end of the suggestions, then I'd sort of leave it open for general discussion. Let's just walk through the list of suggestions, which we've got. Taking a deep breath and talking more slowly. I have all sorts of problems with the way in which I communicate that I continue to work on. So that's advice to me from myself. There's finding more opportunities to involve more people in sprints. That I think relates to the suggestion that Matt was making. And we talked already about I guess these things of, can we spend more time on regular week doing some decision making? Well, that's right. So that's I guess that there's sprint planning, and there's also just making the decisions outside of sprints. Getting more homework, which I think is, Matt, you sort of feeling on some occasions that we were doing the sprint, but then there was maybe, because of what we were working on, it felt like there wasn't that much that you could work on after I'd finished for the day. And with better planning,
I think it depends on the project we're sprinting on as well. There's, like, as you're alluding to with this, I think, there are some things that I didn't, maybe it wasn't good for me to go playing around on the production server by myself with no support,
Although I think, this was to bring it back to that issue of, we had thought that we could do a quick little update on day one and then move on to spending the majority of the week on this broader, open-ended, more sort of modern DevOpsy programming style thing. And we kind of decided on day one to do something slightly different, which was to attempt an upgrade in place.
Yeah.
And we ended up then, effectively pivoting on day one. And some of the things that we thought would be simple turned out to be much more blocky. And so there's so many different learning points from there. But yes, excellent suggestions. And I think, but all of these lead into action item, which is more upfront planning for sprints, which I think we can probably all agree is a good idea. Is there more that we should add to that action item to capture the different suggestions here, Matt?
Sorry for the dead air. I was just thinking.
Never apologize. Just thinking. I think we're allowed to have a moment to relax and reflect. This need for constant noise is one of the perils of modern life. Let's be silent together for a moment. Go on.
Yeah, I don't, more action items. I don't know. I guess it's all like, if we have, the idea is that, having a sprint every other week is that the week in between is like a regular week,
Yeah.
So, and during the regular week, I guess there probably will be regular meetings for the projects that we're going to be sprinting on. So that seems like a good opportunity to do some of those things. Although, if there's enough time to really dive into it, that remains to be seen. Because we did pivot on the first day. And I think part of the reason we pivoted is because the idea was like, we're going to create a box from scratch, and we just kind of took for granted that wouldn't create its own blockages, which they did. And so maybe it would be nice to for someone to kind of like start that process, just to see, hey, okay, I can still connect in the same way, and then stop it, and I don't know. There's always going to be things that come up that you can't anticipate. So and I think we did a relatively good job of pivoting and still being productive and getting stuff done in the limited amount of time we had. I think we had like 3 hours per day together, maybe, that we were sprinting.
Mm-hmm.
more or less. So I think that was, what we got done was definitely a success. The confirm edit, for people who don't know, is part of the package that we added to the extension that we added for MediaWiki that allows us to use that reCAPTCHA, no CAPTCHA that allows us to catch bots trying to sign up. So that's, I mean, if that is, we don't know if that's actually going to make any difference to bots signing up or not, but hopefully the idea is that it might. And if that's what we accomplished, as well as like having, getting a lot better of an understanding of Bitnami and how that all works and the different options that we have available to upgrading, I think that's a huge success.
Good stuff.
What time of the day are you getting together to do the sprint?
So the way it worked out this week is that Matt and I were meeting in the what do we call it, the Martin Fowler Scrum, and
Okay.
Doing a little stand up, and then having a break, and then starting in what has been often the sort of mob slot. So that is effectively about noon UTC was the time that we were starting, and then we would do about an hour and a half, or more or less, and then we would have a break when I had my lunch and Matt had his breakfast, and then we were doing kind of another couple of hours, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah, so really early for you, Nick. But like, I guess after, I mean, you're probably waking up around the second slot that we were.
Well, I get up at 5 a.m., which is about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which is 12 noon UTC. So it's right when I wake up. But the thing is, I got to go to work. So
yeah.
I think in future, I mean, this was, as I think Matt was alluding to, with better planning, we might have been able to set Matt into a position where he could work later on more stuff after I had finished for the day. And I think you did do that sometimes, Matt, but it could have been more. And so, Nick, if you'd wanted to be involved in the sprint, it wouldn't have to be that you would involved in the period when I was there. Right. It could have been you working with Matt later in the day.
It would be, I don't know, it would, like, the weeks you have it scheduled on are the weeks that I'm scheduled to work 50 hours. So my week is pretty much full those weeks. If they were the other weeks, like if it was starting next week, I would have more time. Like if it was bi-weekly starting like on next week.
It's kind of like if it was shifted by 1 week, you're also on a kind of a week on, week off schedule for your work.
More or less, yeah. I don't work as many hours on the other weeks.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know, and perhaps something we can adapt to in future.
Yeah. Can do 2 weeks of sprinting in a row, Sam. Come on. You can do it. That can be an action item.
I'm going to put synchronized sprinting weeks with Nick's availability.
Makes me feel special.
Are you going to put like any sort of time constraints on these action items? You're not saying that it's going to be next week or in 3 weeks' time, but at some point.
The standard procedure with retrospectives is that the action items need to be reviewed at the next retrospective to see if anything's been done on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like the halting problem where it just might go on forever.
Well, it could do, but I think what you're supposed to do is if there's been a struggle and an action item to address the struggle has been proposed and it's been ignored, then it's kind of like okay, we've it's sort of to try and surface that rather than have that kind of. As it can do in some meetings, just sort of slip under the covers and then like, oh, nobody ever mentions it again. So some people's feet could be held to the fire. Sorry, Michael, go on.
I said, so when is the next retrospective?
The plan is to have them at this time on Friday, every Friday.
So, Nick, it'll depend on whether you're here next week, basically. Because if you're here next week, then Sam will basically have to review that action item. Otherwise,
Otherwise, I might
most
accidentally
likely just
delete it
ignore
during
it.
the week.
Just ignore it.
Or you could send someone to like hold my feet to that fire on your behalf. So there's all sorts of things that one could do.
You just might not scroll all the way down that far.
I might just kind of, oh, I'm tired now. I'm going to go to supper. What I will say is that the weeks of sprinting that I've kind of set up for the next few weeks are pretty difficult for me to change.
That's
Just in the short term. So I'd see this as, you know, like
I mean,
something to
I was just throwing it out there, but I don't expect you to change it. So,
and it's not that we aren't doing interesting things in the off weeks, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and potentially, like, you know, there's more flexibility about what you work on in those or it's easier to get attention.
Yeah, that was something that was actually like a personal struggle for me, is that, you know, there was lots of different meetings and mobs that I used to like being a part of. Like, for example, the algorithms mob. I don't know if everyone knows about that, but that happened today and I missed it. So that was difficult.
Yeah, last week we had like 8 people show up, and I must have scared them all away because this week it was just Federico and I.
Oh, really? Yeah, I wanted to be there. I was there in spirit, you know, but yeah.
And you videoed it, and so potentially you'll be able to rejoin the spirit later on, Matt, and potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time watching videos. One of the only videos I have watched is the Refactoring Book Club, which is really cool. It's not a mob; it's open for everyone. It's really nice. I have watched that once, but yeah, I don't know. I have a blockage on that on watching videos versus like normally when I have extra time, I'm trying to grab something and code it. You know, but
yeah, it's hard to make time to watch videos.
If it were like a podcast that I could like have audio, and then while I'm like doing the dishes, listen to it, or while I'm running, or I don't run. Who am I kidding? But, you know, riding the bike or whatever.
Well, absolutely. And I totally agree with about watching videos. You can put them on times too, and they take half as long to listen to, depending if you're used to that speed. And you were just telling us, Matt, about how you can extract the podcast from the YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sam, did you? I noticed that you weren't really taking a turn to talk about suggestions and or like struggles, and I mean, you were reading them off, but did you was there anything that jumped out for you this week?
Well, I added some of them. I guess I left off putting my name on them, partly because I didn't want to. I think I have a problem with being overbearing and taking too much airtime. And so, yeah, I also sort of specifically didn't take a turn in this to sort of focus more on what other people felt and to sort of create an active listening space to listen to what other people thought. I guess I'd say let's, you know, work towards wrapping this up and maybe then in a sort of a general overview. Yeah, it felt like in hindsight with the sprint, like if we knew now what we knew at the beginning of the week, we would have planned it very differently and could have got all sorts of different effects. But we had some like great last minute successes today that put a rosier shine on it. So I'm very pleased with that. I feel like if we hadn't done the sprint, it would have taken a very, very long time to get to the results that we got this week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. That's a huge benefit of doing, you know, even just one day working on something, having that three hours or potentially 5 hours, whatever, of working on it.
Yeah, and I empathize with the being unable to attend the usual things. That's that's a deficit, is the downside. I mean, I'm hoping that going forward, the kind of week on, week off with that will be a good mix. I'm also very pleased that we're doing this retrospective and we have 4 people this week, and I feel like this feels really good, and I think the process of looking back and then having a few things to tweak for the subsequent week and so on, yeah, that makes me feel very optimistic about improving for the future.
Cool.
And,
awesome.
And I would just like to add that the algorithms mob is really great, and you should come and listen to Federico and I blabber.
When is that again, Nick? Can you remind me?
It's at 8 Pacific Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So right before this.
Oh, really? So I can go to the algorithms mob and then directly after that go into the retrospective?
Yes.
Wow,
that's
awesome.
That's the way to do it.
So that's some forward planning.
We might make it mandatory. If you attend the algorithms mob, you have to attend the retrospective.
Good show. So then maybe something to wrap up on, unless anybody else has any burning things, was something you mentioning earlier, Matt, which is about you were, I think, hoping we would come to a decision about what the sprint would be the week after next. And I'm open to persuasion, but I'm definitely leaning towards saying let's make it local support and see if we can get local support onto the Doku Azure.
Yep.
And then also see how much of connecting up the charity commission. I get there's sort of a list of about 4 things, but we can go into that in the local support meeting next week for that.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like we had kind of come to that decision in a soft way already, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, I am really looking forward to the website one sprint as well, because I guess of some stuff that I was mentioning earlier about cleaning up the gem files and getting things, improved in that. But I think local support, like the whole Doku thing, seems like maybe the biggest action item for those projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that leaves me with one final thing that I think, well, I'm not sure if we've actually managed to reduce the costs on Azure this week, and I'm not even sure if there's a simple way to tell. And I think that becomes a strong action item for me to deal with next week in the general admin of things. We must reduce the Azure costs, or at least work out how to measure them rather than waiting for bills.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed on that, like they were earlier in the week, they were giving us like something to click on that's like, learn how to use less, and I tried to click on it and didn't have I couldn't. I think like now that's not even an option. They're just like, that's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll look into it. Yeah, absolutely, we'll look into it next week. Great.
Oh, hey, real quick, what is this at TransferWise sign up?
Oh, so that's one other thing. So we did manage to successfully use TransferWise to distribute a mentor incentive payment this week, and they, as a result of creating that account for Agile Ventures, they gave. I think they give this to everybody who creates new accounts, but you've got like a link to sign up friends to use TransferWise, and we'll get £50 for Agile Ventures if you sign up for TransferWise, and you'll also get like the first £500, or I guess equivalent like $600 or whatever, of transfers that you do for free over it.
Wow.
I mean,
so I saw you posted that, but there is no link in your post.
Oh, is there not? That's weird. You mean the one in the Tech Talk?
Oh, in random. I'm looking at it.
Oh yeah, random. Okay, that's because I tweeted it, and then I subsequently. Oh yeah. Yes. So in fact, There. Well, this is the link here that I happen to have, and I'll post that in there. There it is.
Awesome.
All right. Great stuff. Well, everybody have a wonderful weekend, and see you next week.
All right. See you. Thank
Bye
you.
for now.